All right, so here we are. Again, another month has gone by. Every time I teach, I always talk about the time passing and impermanence, so I'll try not to get into that. But I like to check in. We have a nice small group today, so you guys want to type something for now, and once I go through the circle, um, I can, you know, read it, but just checking in, what's going on, anything. You can pass if you're not interested. I'll just start with you. Look at nothing too exciting, nothing too painful. Sounds all right. Yeah, good. All right.
It's good. Came too fast this time around. So do you like the
Mm. Autumn's a great a lot of me impermanence and all that fun stuff that I like to talk about. Would you like to share anything today? Yes. Yeah. Hopefully we don't scare you away. How you doing? Good. Great. Awesome. And then let's see, anybody checking in on here? Haresh is eating, so I won't bother him. Um, oh, there he is, longing to be with my family in India. Okay. The holidays will do that to you. All right.
so you have to be as far as India? Just longing to do it. This time and distance that we used to be when we were kids. Families stayed close together.
Everyone's sick of each other. I don't know if you have that too in your family, but people don't want to get together anymore. Not like my close family.
Yeah.
Ooh,
So
change.
This is going to be a major lifestyle change in the house. I retired.
Gonna be a big change. All right. Well, I was going to talk to you guys today about it's one of the chapters in, I think it's my second book, and it's about the Jikado. I don't know if any of you have read Your Life is Meditation, but so the Jikado is just a fancy Zen word for timekeeper. And when you go on retreats, there's always a timekeeper, right? Someone needs to keep time of how long you sit, so you don't just sit for 5 hours, right? And at the retreat center that I went to originally for most of my practice, the monks and the nuns of the tradition would be the timekeeper. So no one ever had to be assigned a timekeeper. But then I started studying with a teacher in Ridgewood because she was closer, and they did retreats, but there were no monks and nuns because it was all lay people like me. So they had assignments, and it never really crossed my mind that I could be assigned one, and back when this happened, I was really into like, what is meditation going to get for me? And how can like, I need to not be distracted. I need to just go deep so I can have this experience of enlightenment and my life will be happily ever after. I won't have to deal with all this difficult stuff or the stress or the anger anymore or the anxiety. I could just, let me focus on my practice. Let me just keep practicing, get that magic mantra, that special guru, you know, the right method, if I go on enough retreats, then I'll be saved from all of this. Basically, that was, and it wasn't, and I don't want to condemn that. I don't want to put that down because that idea of wanting, let's call it enlightenment or oneness or whatever that I was searching for, it got me to practice really hard. I dedicated hundreds, probably thousands of hours to meditation because I had this drive, wanted to be free from suffering. And that's okay. But eventually, you have to let go of this idea of getting something. Because meditation is not about getting something, it's about coming back home to something. It's about letting go into something. You don't get the awareness that offers you freedom. You already are the awareness that offers you freedom. But we forget. We get so lost in the thoughts, in the emotions, in the stories, in the perceptions, and the ideas, and this and that we forget who we really are deep down. So we think it's this whole to do. Oh, I got to meditate, and I got to stop my mind, and I got to get rid of this, and maybe after therapy and this and that, like then there's that happily ever after bullshit again. That it's not how it works. And you guys, I think I've read it here, the quote, "Don't worry, things will get worse." It's from a little Zen book, and there's a whole story to it. That's the last line, but I love that line. One, because there's a sense of humor to it. I like having deep conversations, but lighthearted at the same time. So I love that. There is a little bit of like smart aleck in there. There's also some sobering truths, right? That's a sobering truth. It's gonna get worse, right? I mean, I'm not pessimistic either. I'm a pretty optimistic guy. But aging, illness, death. I just did I'm on TikTok now. Didn't want to do it, but I went on it, and I'm making some good content for meditation, and I'm actually liking it because every video gets like 500 to 800 views, and I'm just starting. So hopefully, as I grow, I can reach more people. I didn't realize you can reach that many people that quickly with stuff. So I made a video of the 5 remembrances. I'm of the nature to grow old. I cannot escape growing old. I'm of the nature to get ill. I cannot escape getting ill. I'm of the nature to die. I can't escape dying. All that, what is the fourth one? I always forget. All that is like dear to me is subject to change. I can't escape, being separated from what I love and people I love. And then the last one has to do with the consequences of my actions are, the ground on which I stand. I'm the owner of the consequences of my actions. So it basically gives you a whole list of like the inevitable, difficult stuff. And then it reminds you of what you can do, right? Your what you do with your body and with your speech and what you choose to dwell in and how you choose to live your life, regardless, right? How did I get on that? 5 remembrances. Talking about something. I don't remember. What was I talking about? I know, I just dropped a lot. I get excited and I go off, but there was a reason I was mentioning that. Oh no, well, we'll just keep, anyone remember? No, okay. Um, it'll come to me, but, so I was going on this retreat. Let's get back to the original story before I go off too far. Uh, and you obviously carve out time for this. I think I only had one of my three children at the time, so it was a little easier. Uh, and you pay for it. And so I went in thinking, okay, like carved out this time finally, paid, it's all good. Uh, and then I got hit with the assignment. And again, I had that idea that I was there to get something. I was there to go really deep and to attain this big fireworks display and awaken, enlightened, and happily ever after. Oh, that's what it was. Um, so I was pretty bummed out. I was pretty upset because I thought in my head, I felt offended. I'm paying for this. I finally made time for it. And now I have to pay attention to the time. And it's not just the time. You have to wake up earlier than everybody. You have to wake them up with the morning boards, plank these boards together. You have to, get people ready for walking meditation with these other like wooden sticks. You have to do the bells for mealtime. So I was pretty unhappy about it. And the first day, I was just really bitter and bummed out. And at some point, I realized like my practice is to be with things as they are. That's what I teach people. That's what I'm always about. That's what meditation's about, is to be able to rest with things the way they are. To, to see, what am I bringing to it? How am I making this worse? How am I creating suffering? How can I let go of that? So I started to see my own mind like, oh, look at this. I'm trying to get something. And then I was hoping it would be one way. And now I'm resisting what I'm supposed to be doing. And if meditation is just about being in that moment fully and opening to life as it is, then what's the problem? So what? I have to look at a clock while I meditate every once in a while to make sure we sit for 30 minutes. I have to wake up a little earlier. That's not a big deal. I have to ring the bells, So I started letting go of this aversion. I started letting go of this idea that it was wrong, that it shouldn't be this way. And then slowly, I started to find joy in it. It was nice to hit the bells and to be fully present for that and to hear the sound and, just let the sound come and go and just be fully there. And then I thought, wow, like I'm doing this so that other people can go really deep in their practice. So there was that attitude of giving, of compassion. It's not just about me and my awakening. Other people want to do it too. And if it wasn't me sitting here, one of them would be sitting here. So I eventually, after I think like the second day, I was just finally like really enjoying it, and they switched me. So I guess they have like a rotating schedule. But I tell this story because the purpose of our meditation practice is really to transform the things that we struggle with. We don't need to meditate because we're having a great week and we're happy and feel light and free, right? We meditate because something feels wrong or something's missing, or we're having a really hard time, or we're habitually reacting this way or that way in certain circumstances, or maybe we have a lot of trauma and pain we've carried, and that's manifesting in all kinds of ways, physically and emotionally and mentally, and we just don't want it anymore. But the hardest thing for me to teach people is that we're not trying to get rid of it. Could you imagine if I put that on the poster? Come sit with your suffering. Probably not going to go away. You might be more sensitive and it might feel even more painful. I'm sure we'd fill this whole room. Because they always talk about inner peace. They never tell you the truth, right? You got to sit with your stuff. And you have to change the way you see it. And that's why I love the 5 remembrances, because they remind you of what's true. Very uncomfortable things to think about. Aging, that we're subject to illness. Tomorrow you could have a brain tumor. Kid of mine, a year older than me. I guess he'd be like 38 right now. He just all of a sudden aggressive brain tumor. Another girl a year older than me had some kind of stroke, and now she's not the same. Things can change, and I always say life doesn't hesitate. Life will change, and it's not going to give you a warning, and it doesn't care if you don't want it to change. It just changes, and then you're left with a new truth. It's not what we want to hear, not what we want to think about. We want to just focus on our lives and our, whatever we focus on, like our jobs or our hobbies or the things we love, and just trying to hang on to pleasurable experiences. But we don't think about the reality because it's too painful, it's too overwhelming, it's too unknown. When you think about death and dying, what's that? Where am I going to go? What is this? We don't think about it. We get so caught up into the day-to-day stuff that we forget that we're on this big rock that's flying around a big fireball where there's like this black hole thing somewhere that I don't know what happens there. Like light gets sucked in there, and we're just we can't even get across our own galaxy, but there's billions of galaxies in the middle of infinite empty space. But here we are at the public library talking about meditation. Like, what the heck's going on? What is this? We just take it for granted. How do you even move your hand? The other day I was looking at, people probably thought I was on drugs. Sitting there looking at my hand. Like, I can move it, but how the heck am I doing that? I get a cut, my body heals itself. How does that happen? My heart's beating right now. I'm not sitting there like flexing it. Something's happening. We don't look at things this deeply, and we should, because then it reminds you all that stuff that we get upset about and worked up about, it falls away when you really contemplate things deep. I'm not saying it all goes away. I still get mad, when the kids aren't listening. I'm tired and I just want to sit down. They want to jump over me. We still have our messy human life, but you can have one foot in the deep end, and that really helps put things into perspective, and it helps shift your perception. If meditation is about seeing clearly. So if you can see clearly how this life is, then you stop causing problems for yourself. If we understand that things are impermanent, we don't try so hard to keep it together. I'm not saying we don't have preferences. We can have preferences and do our best to build the life that we want to have. But it's like building sandcastles. You have to understand that at some point the tide's going to come and take it. And I'm not just talking about our life. It could just be anything: your house, your job, your health, little things. It could be anything. So it's how we relate to the situation. That's what meditation offers us: the freedom to relate differently to the way things already are. It's not about changing things. Yes, can we try to stand up for injustice? Can we try to make laws and vote or do whatever to make changes? Sure. I'm not saying we're helpless and we should just give up. But again, it's coming from a place of clarity, of understanding that this is how things are, so that we're not banging our heads against the wall, wishing for some other life. And that's the beauty and the curse of being a human, is we can think of what the better life would be. We can imagine, oh man, imagine I didn't feel this anxiety, or I didn't have this addiction, or I wasn't so angry, or imagine if I just had this person as a as a partner. Oh my gosh, if I just had enough money, or if we can imagine this world without violence, without hatred, without greed, without bad people, or just a world where we're happy all the time and things are good. But that's not real life, right? And again, it's not black or white. I'm not saying you can't. If you want to innovate, if you want to create something, by all means, something that can help people, it's great. um, but we just have to understand how things are. And if we understand how things are, then we can choose to relate to them differently, because we're not so caught in running away anymore. We're not so caught in the struggle, the fighting. It shouldn't be this way. I don't want this. Something's wrong. Something's missing. No, this is just how things are right now. Yeah? And it doesn't mean it's going to be this way forever, because things change. But for now, these are the ingredients. And sometimes I feel like it's just like, we got to grow up. Just grow up. Life's hard. You're not doing something wrong. You're not screwed up. You're not being punished. Life's not out to get you. Sometimes life just sucks and hurts and is painful and confusing. Okay. When you don't take it as personally, it's just, okay, crappy feeling feels like this. Bad day feels like this. And that's the freedom. And I know it doesn't sound exciting, but just that you have this ability to pause and just say, ooh, the conditions right now are like this. Ooh, wow, this is hard. Again, when I tell people this, I feel like they think, okay, how's that going to help me? But when you do it, you see, because there's a freedom. It doesn't mean that the pain goes away, but it's really hard to put into words. But it's just, there's just this profound okayness that's always there. And if you're resting in awareness, then you're free. Right? When you're angry, is your awareness angry? No. When you're in pain, is your awareness in pain? No. You're really sad. Is your awareness sad? No. That's like if you're crying in front of a mirror, is the mirror crying? No. It's just a reflection. It's just a reflection of the object in the mirror. So it's the same thing with awareness, is that we have this kind of vast, open, I don't know, luminosity, clarity, clear seeing, that right now, like, you see me. Right? There's sight, but then there's a knowing. There's knowing of the shapes and forms that are coming through sight. You hear my voice. There's the sounds, but then there's a knowing. Right? There's a knowing. So it's very simple. It's so straightforward. And whenever I'm getting overwhelmed and I see myself getting caught in something, I can just stop and say, wow, I'm getting caught in angers like this. And then I consciously go into that experience, and then I'm not the anger anymore. I still have to deal with the situation probably, but I can do so from that place of clarity. Whereas if I wasn't aware, what would happen? The anger would be who I am. It would speak through my mouth. It would act through my body, which still happens. It's not about getting it right all the time, but it's just about being conscious. And it's hard to explain to people, because even like in meditation, they're like, oh, I'm so caught in my head today, and I keep trying to come back to the method and I can't. What should I do? Well, just become aware of what getting stuck in your mind's like. Just say, oh, stuck in my head feels like this. Caught in obsession feels like this. And go in, find out what that's like. It's welcoming everything. It's very radical. It's not about changing things. It's not about feeling a certain way. It's about welcoming your life, all of it. I always say the 10,000 joys and sorrows. But we don't want that. We just want the good stuff. We want to keep pretending that there's some pill or some magic cure that can make it all okay. And here's the thing, even though I say we don't make it all okay, there's an okayness that comes when you finally accept that you're not going to make it all okay, that it's not going to feel good all the time, that you're going to screw it up, that there's just something, it's like the paradox of practice, and it doesn't make sense, but that's why it's true, I think, and at least it's been true for me and the people that I know that have done it for a long time. So it's about transforming things by allowing them, by welcoming them, by not fighting, learning to stay. That's what Pema Chodron talks about all the time, one of my favorite authors. Meditation is learning to stay. Because as soon as we feel uncomfortable, we want to run away. Right? If it gets too cold in here, turn on the heat. Right? If it's too hot, open up a window. You feel a little like lonely or sad. Where's the ice cream? Let me go eat some pretzels. Right? And I read something. There's this guy, I forget his name. They call him the Iceman. Oh, Hoff. Wim Hof, something like that. And I read this thing by him, and it made a lot of sense. And he said that cold in general, is like an extreme stressor. And if you can relax with the cold, he said something like profound. I don't remember what it was. And he does a lot of work with sitting in ice baths and stuff. He tells you to take a cold shower every morning, which I don't do. But as I was walking from the car, I was freezing. And I was like, oh, stressor. Let me train myself to relax into what's uncomfortable. There's a chapter about that in my book, because when I used to go to Montclair, it's on top of like a mountain. It's freezing all the time. And no matter how zipped up you are, wind somehow gets in your clothes. And I made it a practice to relax. Like when you feel like you go like this and you're like, I hate this. But you can just soften and feel highly uncomfortable. And it's a good training. This winter season, start with that. I really would, have you try. Like when you're walking your car and it's miserable and it's cold, see if you can soften and just say, ooh, cold is like this. It's pretty uncomfortable. Right? You want to train yourself with little things. So when the big ones come, you're able to hold it. You're able to be with it. The big changes. And I brought up this thing that I wanted to read by Tamara Engel. And she's passed now, but she wrote this when she was, a few days from passing. And the chapter that Jack Kornfield, I don't know if she called it this or if Jack Kornfield called it The Trusting Spirit, but that's the title. So she said, my days are short, and as I grow weaker, I experience so much gratitude for my meditation, not only for the joy and ease it's brought, but the hard parts, for every bored and restless sitting, and every fearful fantasy, and every pain and ache I sat through, and every itch I didn't scratch was a training for kindness, a training for the muscle for bearing witness, for the trusting spirit that carries me now as I face my death. So to have that kind of practice, and like my teacher always would say from college, what does this have to do with Tuesday afternoon, right? That answers that question. What is sitting down facing a wall at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m, whenever I've been getting up at 4:30 to do mine without kids, without anybody bothering me. The cat's a little annoying, but I've learned to sit with her. But she's pushing this little ball with a bell around. I'm like, really? I woke up to have silence, and here I am. But you sit with it, right? You sit with it all. And every time you sit through something, every time you relax in the cold, it's a training of kindness. And it gives you that trusting spirit, trusting in awareness, trusting in your ability to welcome life no matter what. And I think over time, when you keep showing up and you keep doing the practice and you sit through good days and bad days. You sit through happiness and sadness. You sit through health, and maybe when you're sick, you sit through when you're younger and as you get older. And you realize that there's always these changing conditions, but awareness has always been there, and awareness is holding these conditions. And I feel like you start living from that space rather than the changing conditions of your body and mind, which are just always pretty crazy, you know. I want to actually get back because I did remember what I was talking about. So the don't worry, things will get worse, right? I brought up those 5 remembrances because that line was pointing to a sobering truth. And I like to remind people and to contemplate it because I find it to be extremely helpful. So to have a little bit of a sense of humor, like, oh, don't worry, things get worse. With that sobering truth, but even a little teaching, like the don't worry, like, there's a saying like, whatever happens, I don't mind. So the don't worry is almost like pointing to the equanimity, the balance that we get from practice. Does that mean you don't freak out ever? Not necessarily, but that you hold freaking out differently. That again, it's really hard to explain because you still have the same stuff. Like after 15 years and hundreds of thousands of hours of meditating, I still have the same stuff as you guys. I still can get mad, I can get impatient. I'm subject to illness, obviously, and aging and all this stuff, all these gray hairs coming. It's the 3 kids, I think, but they're coming. But I also have a very different relationship to that than I did 15 years ago. I have a lot more understanding, and I may have said this last time, but there's a teacher, his name's Koshin. He wrote 2 books. The one I was reading was called Untangled, and he was talking about how he got some kind of illness. I forget what it was. And you know what he said to himself? My turn. Can you imagine getting to that point where you get an illness and instead of being the victim, instead of feeling sorry for yourself, instead of being angry at God or, hating the situation, to be able to say, oh, right? And that, that's where this practice, that's the direction, to be able to say, okay, life is like this. And then how do I live from that understanding? So that's the other side of it. So there's the wisdom aspect of like, okay, we need to see things clearly. We need to wake up. We need to let go of all the stuff that's making us worse, but then how do we choose to live from that place of understanding? So the 2 easy ways that I break that down is how can I not contribute to the suffering in the world? How can I not cause harm to the best of my ability, with my life? And then how can I ease other people's suffering as I see it throughout the day? So for me, obviously, my main way is by sharing this, but it could be calling a friend, that I know is alone. It could be checking in on someone, or just like, there's so many people that their mother's sick or this person's got this problem, and just asking, hey, how's your mom doing? Just simple. It's simple stuff, showing that you care an ounce. Because at least in the business that I'm in, and the food, like grocery, world, there's a lot of miserable, angry, rude people. So kindness goes a long way. It's really hard to see. I walked by 2, they looked like the managers of the store. I walked by, said, excuse me, sorry. They just don't say anything. They just look at you like you're an asshole for no reason. And it's like, how do you live that way? And I used to get mad, but at this point in my life, I just, my heart opens. It's like, what kind of life are you living that like that? That's the way that you express yourself. got to be a painful, painful life that you can't even say good morning to someone or no problem, thank you. You know, just simple stuff. It's sad and it's getting worse. Not to joke about my quote, but people are getting worse, getting more like impatient, more angry, doing wild things. I mean, seeing the YouTube videos, I'm sure, of just the Karens, right? Or whatever, just like, but it's an expression of the inner world. There's a lot of inner turmoil out there. And that expresses itself in the madness that we see all the time. So we have to do the work. Someone's got to do it. So it's us. Us, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Us 7. We're going to change the world by staring at a wall for 10 minutes a day. Sounds silly, but it's true. I always joke that, and it's not a joke, that best things in my life have come from me sitting around doing nothing. It's true. Been able to do stuff like this and meet people and help people, and so let's do a meditation so I don't talk the whole. So get comfortable. Let me get my timer here. Finally, Mark's being quiet. And I'll save a little time if anyone has any questions. I don't know why I don't have a voice today, but. All right, so hands on the knees or in the laps, sit up tall, right? Or a nice wakeful posture. We're not trying to fall asleep. And we can start with the sound of the bell. So I'll hit it 3 times. Just hear the sound, very simple. As we sit, we can begin by just simply noticing what this moment's like. And without the judgments. I'm not saying you need to like the moment, but you can welcome it. You can allow it to be as it is. And why wouldn't you? That's what's true right now. It's your life. What use is wishing for something else, right? Does it help? Does it change it? So just notice. And what I find helpful is just putting a little mental note. If there's anything, kind of pulling your awareness. For me, I have a herniated disc in my neck, so achy neck. Just give it a label. That's what's true right now for my body. there's a tightness in your chest. So tightness in chest. And I feel that when you just give things a label and allow yourself to feel them, you're honoring. You're honoring whatever that is, pleasant or not. Could be just a good feeling, maybe just happy to be here. Happiness feels like this. Enjoying the moment feels like this. So see what's going on in the body. What's going on in the mind? And can you practice welcoming all of it? That bored sitting, the anxious sitting, the busy mind sitting, the itchy sitting, the achy back sitting. Can you welcome and appreciate your life just as it is? And see what happens when you drop into awareness. Just be the silent witness. Just because the mind is busy doesn't mean awareness is busy. Awareness knows what a busy mind looks like. It's not busy. Awareness knows what overwhelm feels like in the body, but it's not overwhelmed. It just knows. So you start to get a taste of this freedom, this spaciousness, this ease. And just feel that relief. No struggle, no resistance, just for a few moments. And it's subtle. You don't look for some big calm to come over you. But it's like you've been holding a tight fist all day and you finally let it go. And then from here, we just can soften. We do that by first deepening our breath, breathing in all the way down into the belly, and then slowly out. And then by consciously softening the body as we're breathing out. It's like you're dropping into the moment. And I really like this, analogy of an ice cube melting into water, and then the water evaporates. That's what we want to try to feel on those exhales. That solidity becoming more fluid. And then that fluidity just kind of expanding into space. Breathe deeply. Relax the body as much as you're able. And just leave everything alone. Know it. Know what's happening. Leave it all alone. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing missing. There's nothing that's bad and shouldn't be here. Take the approach of it. If it arises, it belongs. If it arises, I'm going to honor it and hold it, allow it to express itself, and then let it go. Because even the most painful things come and go. And as you're doing all of this, you can still continue with the naming, the labeling. But again, I'll let it only be things that are really distracting. Like a little thought here and there coming and going, no big deal. But if your mind is planning how you're going to go to Bombay, you're going to get some tikka masala, then you could just say, planning mind, hungry mind. If you just, hear this constant judging or criticism in your mind, just critical mind, or having a critical thought. Feeling really tense today. Right? Just things like that. And I find that naming to be that unconditional friendliness, that kindness. You're not saying it's wrong or bad, just saying it is. It's like this. And if you get pulled away, just simply come back to the breath. Feel yourself breathing in. Feel yourself breathing out. Anytime you get pulled, distracted, oops, let me feel this breath. So in a moment, I'll hit the bell just one more time. Just allow it to pass through. It'll arise, you'll hear it for a little, and then it'll fade away. It's like everything else in this life. Just be the space, be the knowing. Hear it come and go. Here, take a nice deep breath, breathing in through the nose. Out. And slowly you can begin to wiggle the fingers, the toes. And then when you're ready, you can open the eyes. So now there's a couple minutes. If anyone has a question. Yes. Okay, so you could do it. So the question was, in case you didn't hear, what the benefit of longer retreats? What's the benefit of a long retreat versus just meditating every day? The benefit is that you literally, that's all you're doing for this extended period. So you can go deeper into it. So, think of it like, trying to think of the best analogy for this. Like if you're trying to dig for water, you could do a little digging, right? You might eventually get some water, but no, you actually start, it's usually the opposite. There's definitely some restlessness, especially at the beginning, but then, it's like a jar of muddy water. Like all day, we're shaking it up just because of daily life. When you're on a retreat, you're literally leaving it alone all the time, whether you're eating, walking, lying down, meditating, and the mind begins to settle. And then you can see things clearer. You can see more subtle dimensions of what we talk about. So we could see impermanence easily, like on a big level, but to see the arising of the sense of self, and to see just this moment by moment of consciousness arising, and there's all kinds of things. And again, is that the point of practice? No. But the experiences happen, and then it becomes, how do I integrate that depth? And then on longer retreats too, you don't distract yourself. It's also a time for past pains and things to come up and to be healed. So something from childhood comes up, or grief that, hey, your mother died 2 years ago and you haven't really grieved, and that'll be there waiting for you. You get to let things go. So it's just a time where you can really focus, like laser focus on just being aware and just noticing without distraction. And sometimes you do notice the restless mind, but after a few days, you really start to settle, and then you're there. And then strange things can happen. Not saying they will. It's like no guarantee. Every retreat's different. You know what? There are people that I remember sharing, and they're like, "Oh, well, this happened to me when I was a kid, and I thought I was, a serious practitioner. Like, I thought I've been through this already, and this retreat was really hard. All that stuff was coming up again, And as far as I knew, she looked like a Buddha. It's like, what? I was like, oh, of course she's sitting still and looking peaceful. Like, I was getting mad at her. This was in my book too, I think. I tell this story about that woman, because she was just sitting. She was sitting through the walking. I'm like stretching my legs. I'm distracted. I'm like all disgruntled, and she's just like I'm not gonna say what I was thinking, but then when she did the group sharing, it was like she was suffering the whole time. So you can't like just judge like that, but you do. You have ideas about everybody. They call it the Vipassana romance. That's what Jack Cornfield calls it. Where like you could see someone, then you have this whole like you get married, you're in Hawaii. It's funny. But, I would recommend it at least once before life is over. At least once. Try. I wouldn't say go right to like a 10-day, but you could. But I feel like even like Friday to Sunday is not long enough. Like there's a nice 5-day one that comes around every October. Been on that one twice. It's a Who Am I retreat. It's really intense. But man, it'll be hard, but it'll be worth it.
First couple of days, she was fidgety.
Right.
And it's okay to relax.
Yeah.
All that stuff that you should be doing.
But it's hard. You face yourself. You face all of yourself, and there's no way to run away. And every retreat that I've ever been on, usually in the middle, let's say it's 10 days. By day 5, you're like, oh shit, I want to go home. This sucks. But then, that passes. And then the next moment you're watching a leaf fall and you feel like God's like touching your heart. And you're just like, what the is this about? So you never know. It's just, I don't know. I've been yearning to go on one because it's been a while since I've done a good one. And now I know how to practice. And that's like the joke on me. Like I had all this time in college, but I was trying to get something. Now it would just be, let me just show up and be there and practice the right way. It'll happen. Sure. Kids will grow up, not want to talk to me anymore, and then I'll have all the time in the world to meditate. Any other questions? Any questions out there? You could type if you want. Yeah. Well, our next one, let me see the date. Christmas is Sunday, so 27th. Unless they tell me no, but I don't see why not. I think they're open. So I'm around. I ain't got nothing to do. I'm working that day. So, but yeah, so, keep showing up. Just carve out that time. And just, you don't have to do anything special. You don't have to do a method. You don't have to try to just sit there and notice what's going on. And just be with yourself. Let it just be this intimate time where you can just, like I say, open mic night for your heart and mind and body. And you just sit with it. And you breathe. You can focus on breathing. You can relax. There are methods you can do. But really, at the end of the day, it's just showing up and just knowing what's happening. When you get pulled away, you come back. You start complaining, you realize, and you just say, complain. Rest in the true mind. That's what in Zen, that's what the Zen approach is. Sit down, shut up, and just sit in your true mind. What does that mean? Just be awareness. Just so mind is doing this. I hear these sounds. I feel these feelings. Right? And you start welcoming it all with a sense of balance, sense of equanimity. And that changes you over time. Doesn't free you of humanity, your humanity, but it changes you. It softens you. So it's very strange. Very strange. And then you yearn for that. Like I look forward to that. It can become a task if you don't appreciate it or you don't like enjoy it, but you yearn for that stillness and that silence. Something about it. When you go on a retreat, you swear I'm never gonna do it again. Then 2 months go by and it's like, it's calling you back. Weird. Very weird. If I would have told if I could go back in time and tell my 20-year-old self, like, he'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? You know, things really change. It really, I feel like it matures you quickly, like wisdom wise, I think it increases. I think life can make you mature and wise. That's what I really mean, wise. But I think meditation speeds up that process somehow. You can delude yourself too with meditation. But... All right, guys, go before I keep talking all night. See you next time. So long, guys. Oh, what's the best way of burning sage? Haresh, we joke about the hokey pokey stuff. All right, guys. Have a great day, night, wherever you are, and I'll see you next time.